So the NFL Combine is here, and the Philadelphia Eagles have already made some headlines as they just met with one of the top linebacker prospects in this year's draft, and they've also shown interest in multiple other guys. Plus, Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman also spoke for the first time since their exit press conference, and a lot came out of it, with Sirianni defending both A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts from the recent criticism, while Howie Roseman hinted at the fact that the Eagles are going to be aggressive in adding players to the defense, and he also gave a massive update on DeVonta Smith's contract situation and pending extension. So we're going to talk about all that and more in this video today, and we won't waste any time. Let's get straight into it. So to start things off, we just got another update on the whole L'Jarius Sneed situation, as of course there have been a lot of rumors recently connecting Sneed to the Eagles as we're set to enter free agency, and more fuel was added to that fire with the report that multiple of Sneed's college teammates that are a part of the Eagles, namely Boston Scott and Milton Williams, were texting Sneed to try and recruit him to Philly. However, any hopes that L'Jarius would decide to sign with the Eagles pretty much died out on Tuesday with the report that the Chiefs are planning to use their franchise tag on Sneed this offseason. However, that doesn't mean that Sneed still can't end up in Philly, as the report also says that if Sneed and the Chiefs can't come to terms on a long-term extension, then the two sides will work together to find a trade partner. Now, how much would the Chiefs want in return for Sneed? I don't really know. There's definitely no doubt in my mind that Howie Roseman is going to look into it and see what it would actually cost to trade for him, but I just don't see this being that likely anymore, because now on top of paying him a big money extension, you also probably have to give up some draft capital and maybe other assets to even acquire Sneed. So I just don't really see the Eagles doing that when they could just go out and sign another one of the better corners on the free agent market. Although if you ask Howie Roseman, the Eagles might sadly still be planning to keep James Bradberry as one of their starting corners.
He remains part of your plans.
Yeah, he's under contract, part of our plans.
Now look, in all honesty, that wasn't very much from Howie or very specific at all. I mean, quote, part of our plans could mean anything, and obviously Howie isn't just going to come out and say whether they want to trade or maybe even cut JB publicly, because that just wouldn't be smart. Then again, like he said, Bradberry is still under a pretty big contract, so it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do with him this year, and whether they actually still believe that he can get back to being that all-pro level player he was in 2022, or whether they think that it's just best to move on from him. I mean, I of course would prefer that they move on and either draft somebody or go after one of the bigger names in free agency, but what do you guys think? Now that little clip of Howie comes from a press conference that was held on Tuesday at the NFL Combine, as it's that time of year again. Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, and the Eagles are down in Indy to watch all these draft prospects and hold interviews with some of them, and we've already got word on some guys that they're very interested in. One of them is Oklahoma tackle Tyler Guyton, as the Eagles have already scheduled a top 30 visit with the 6'7", 330-pound tackle, as he at this point definitely seems to be one of their top targets at pick number 22 as they prepare for the NFL draft. I mean, they already reportedly met with Guyton at the Senior Bowl, and sure, there aren't really reports about how that meeting specifically went, but it seems to have went well considering that they already have a top 30 visit scheduled with him, and I'm sure that they liked what they saw at the Senior Bowl as well, because this dude was really impressive throughout that, putting his size, speed, athleticism, and great pass blocking on display. And on top of that, Guyton and fellow Oklahoma and of course Eagles tackle Lane Johnson seem to share a close relationship, with Guyton referring to Lane as a mentor and saying this about their relationship at the Senior Bowl.
He's meant a lot to me. Being a right tackle, I think he's the best right tackle to ever play football. I talk to him all the time. Like he's become a mentor to me, like a big brother. And learning from him definitely elevates my game, and I feel like it's also a challenge to him to make me better. You know, it's like a big brother, little brother relationship.
You gotta love that, and I mean, it is certainly time for the Eagles to start preparing for when Lane eventually does decide to retire, so having a guy that's mentored by the Eagles legend himself, and who Lane also called a freakazoid while saying that he moves the best out of anybody in the draft, even at his huge size, that sounds pretty good to me. Now, on the other hand, Guyton's pretty raw and has some developing to do, but who better to develop him than the O-line guru Jeff Stoutland himself? I mean, the Eagles do have many other needs right now, but I really wouldn't be too mad if they decided to pick Guyton and just stored him for the future for when Lane eventually decides to retire, but what do you guys think? Now, in addition to watching Guyton, there will be plenty of other interesting players to watch at the NFL Combine, and the Eagles will surely have a focus on the defensive side of the ball, as they really need to do a lot of retooling there this offseason, both in the draft and free agency, and it seems like they're going to be aggressive in doing that, as during his Combine press conference, Howie Roseman seemed to hint at the fact that the Eagles might be more focused on the defensive side of the ball this offseason as opposed to last year.
I think you want to improve every area, every layer of your team. Certainly, I think when we look back at last offseason, we made a conscious decision to kind of put a little bit more resources onto the offensive side. Knew that we'd lose some good players on defense. I think looking back, certainly missed some of those guys. That starts with me and making those decisions. And so I don't think there's an area that, we wouldn't, be open to addressing.
I do honestly think it'd be the correct approach to place a more heavy emphasis on the defense, because I think it's clear that they just need to make some major changes there and get a lot younger on that side of the ball. And one defensive position to really keep your eye on for the Eagles during the Combine and the draft is going to be linebackers. Of course, we all know that the Eagles are in desperate need of one of those as they head into the offseason, and there are a lot of intriguing linebacker prospects in this year's draft class, class, and the main one that a lot of people have mentioned as an option for the Eagles is Clemson's Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the son of former Eagles star Jeremiah Trotter. And Trotter Jr. actually was able to meet with the Eagles already this week ahead of all the combine events.
The Eagles, they're a great team, great club, and it'd be a blessing to be able to play for them as well. I'm just really just waiting for the opportunity, go wherever I go. I'd be happy wherever I land.
That's definitely great news because there's good reason to believe that he could be a really good addition to the Eagles defense. He's a physical guy that's not afraid to lay a big hit. He's got a great motor. He's quick to diagnose plays, whether it's run or pass. He's actually also pretty good in pass coverage, at least in zone looks, which we know Vic Fangio is going to utilize a lot. Now, maybe when he's isolated and in man coverage, that might be a different story, but still, obviously, he would be a rookie and he'd have a lot of developing to do once he got to the Birds. And he's also a very good blitzer and pass rusher from the inside linebacker position. Plus, it's very likely that he's going to be there for the Eagles at either pick 50 or 53. So I personally would love the pick, as many Eagles fans would. And again, it's great news that they already met with him at the combine. But that being said, Trotter definitely isn't the only linebacker to keep your eye on for the Eagles. I mean, it was reported earlier in the offseason that they have very real interest in Edgerrin Cooper, who may actually be a bit better than Trotter at this point, and he could be an exciting addition. You also got the ultra-athletic Cedric Gray from North Carolina, or 2023's Butkus Award winner Peyton Wilson. So there's definitely a lot of guys to keep your eye on at that position, but regardless, linebacker should just be a huge priority for the Eagles in the draft. So again, it'll be important to keep your eye on all these guys at the combine. Now, another one of the Eagles' huge priorities this offseason should be extending DeVonta Smith. As of course, Smitty's heading into the last year of his rookie deal. He's played like one of the best receivers in the NFL since he was drafted to the Birds. So again, the Eagles just flat out need to extend him ASAP. Now, Howie Roseman was asked about a potential DeVonta Smith extension at the combine, and he hinted that it's going to be a massive priority for them to get that done.
Well, DeVonta's an incredible person, an incredible player, obviously homegrown, young guy. Without getting into specifics, those aren't guys that you really want to leave.
So again, he pretty much said without saying that bringing back Smitty is going to be a huge priority for them, and I really wouldn't worry about them getting that done. I expect that to happen at some point this offseason. I mean, I doubt they mess around and wait and risk his value going up because of some other receivers getting new contracts, and this is definitely not going to go into next year. A Smitty extension will happen this offseason. I cannot envision a scenario where they don't get that done. It's just a matter of when. And I'm personally really excited to see how he benefits from playing in Kellen Moore's offensive system. I mean, I've said that numerous times before. I think that Smitty was not really used correctly this past year, and putting him in this new system with more motion and more creative route concepts and hunting matchups out is just really going to help him take his game to the next level. And that's just one of the reasons that I'm excited about Kellen Moore and what he's going to bring as the OC of this team in 2024. And Nick Sirianni's excited too, as at the combine, he was able to speak publicly for the first time on Kellen Moore's hiring, and this is what he said.
So obviously Kellen, I hired Kellen because I felt like he was the best guy for the job, and so he's been highly successful, and we've been highly successful, and I think that I'm really looking forward to meshing the things, meshing what he's done really well together with the things that we've done really well, And I think it's going to be a really good match. And Kellen's track record speaks for itself.
I think we're all really excited to see how the Eagles offense is going to look different this coming year with Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator, and just what new concepts he's going to bring in. And I think we can all agree that the Eagles offensive playmakers are only going to benefit from having more motion and crossing routes and more creative route concepts and all those things. I mentioned DeVonta Smith, but A.J. Brown is really going to benefit as well. I mean, he's a guy who's dominated in his career using the slant route or routes across the middle of the field. We know he can catch one of those and just take it to the house, and we also know that there's going to be a lot more of those crossing routes or slant routes in Kellen Moore's offense, so this is definitely going to be really fun to watch. And speaking of AJ, he's obviously been in the news recently for calling in a WIP and just calling out the Philly media for making things up and spreading rumors and making him out to be a bad guy or a locker room cancer, when he's really honestly just a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve and is a great leader. And Nick Sirianni made sure to go to bat for AJ, as he always does, when he was asked about him and his WIP call on Tuesday at the combine.
AJ, like I've been telling you guys for a long time, not only is he, one of the best players I've ever been around, he's also one of the best leaders, and and he's going to do anything he can do to stick up for his teammates. That's why I admire. That's why he wears a C on his chest. And I think that, if you're speculating, well, hey, what does it mean if he's yelling over here? Like, everybody doesn't. There's some people that when you're leading them, you yell at them. And there's some people when you're leading them, you put your arm around them. And there's some people, there's somewhere in the middle. And that's leadership also, is just figuring out what buttons to press with different guys. Not every person is you don't treat everybody the exact same, right? The standard is what it is, and you hold everybody to that standard. But you don't treat everybody exactly the same of how you get to that standard, how you correct that standard, or how you praise that standard. Everybody's a little bit different. I think, AJ understands that. Like I said, just a great teammate, great person. In my opinion, best receiver that's been in Philadelphia. You look at the stats and you look at what AJ's done in a 2-year span. He's had the 2 most productive years ever as an Eagle wide receiver. And so, man, like when you have one of your best players being also one of your best leaders, that's special.
I mean, regardless of how you feel about Sirianni, you just gotta love him sticking up for his guy like that. And in addition to him sticking up for AJ, he also stuck up for Jalen Hurts, as of course there's all the reports that now all of a sudden Jalen isn't a good leader because he's too stoic and he instead needs to show more emotion, but Nick doesn't seem to agree with that.
There's not a book that is written on this is how you lead, right? People lead in different ways. And one thing I learned early about in leadership is that you have to be yourself. And because if you lead and you're trying to be somebody you're not when you lead, then that gets seen through. I mean, that's just the same scenario I was put in, when I became the head coach or an offensive coordinator or whatever it was. And everybody has to lead their way. And Jalen has special qualities that people will follow and people will want to follow. And he's got to do what he needs to do to lead in that way. And so some people's leadership style is loud and aggressive. Some people's leadership style is by example, and some is a mixture of both. And so Jalen needs to lead how he needs to lead, right? And AJ needs to lead how he needs to lead. And whoever it is, Slay's got to lead how he needs to lead, and because that's leadership, right? Is being who you are and leading an example. At the end of the day, if you're leading by example, that's a great style of leadership. So Jalen needs to lead how he needs to lead, and I think he's done a great job of doing so.
Now, first off, Nick, I just want to say that there are definitely books on how to be a leader or how to lead. But with that being said, I actually do agree with the fact that when leading, you just have to be yourself, because if you're not, people are going to see right through it. So when it comes to Jalen, I really don't think he should force himself to be someone else, because at the end of the day, that would just be inauthentic and then less effective. Nobody was complaining about Jalen Hurts' leadership when the Eagles were winning. All that criticism started when the losing started. So I just think it's important to not lose sight of that, and Jalen just needs to keep being the best leader that he can be without changing his personality. And honestly, the Eagles just need to focus on nailing this offseason, and the Combine here is a good place to start. So I'm going to be covering all that as well as the rest of the Eagles offseason here on this channel, so if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you subscribe, and also really importantly, turn on notifications so you don't miss when any other videos just like this are uploaded. Also, while you're at it, make sure you drop a like on this video to show some support, and leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And if you want to watch another video going over some surprising moves that the Eagles can make in free agency, you can check this out right here. Now, with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys, so thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.